poor girl entered a stranger's car, thinking it was her ride, but he was a billionaire CEO. The rain was falling like the sky had broken open. Downtown was a blur of headlights and umbrellas, and Maya clutched her coat tighter as she stepped off the curb. Her shoes were soaked, her bag heavy with the weight of leftovers from the diner where she worked double shifts, and her body screamed for rest. But tonight wasn't like the others. Her phone had died an hour ago, and she was relying purely on memory. She had called a ride black sedan, tinted windows, plate ending in 9B2. She repeated it to herself over and over like a prayer. And then, right in front of her, a sleek black car pulled up. She didn't hesitate. She opened the back door, tossed her bag in, and collapsed onto the seat, her voice barely louder than a whisper. "Thanks for coming. I thought I was going to drown out there." The driver didn't move. "Hey?" she asked, leaning forward, brushing her wet hair from her face. And then she saw him. Not the older man, with a baseball cap like she expected. Not the worn seat covers or the faded Uber sticker. Instead, a man in a tailored suit, clean-shaven, sharp jawline, piercing blue eyes flicked toward her in the mirror. "You're not my driver," she said, her heart beginning to race. "No," he replied calmly, one hand on the wheel, the other adjusting the car's internal controls. "But you got in anyway." "Two thought," she stammered. "I'm sorry, I must have—" "It's raining," he interrupted, glancing at her soaked clothes. "You can stay until the storm passes." Maya didn't know whether to be terrified or grateful. She hesitated with her hand on the door, then slowly pulled it back. "Are you sure?" He gave a slight nod. The silence between them grew louder, broken only by the hum of the engine and the rhythm of the rain against the roof. Maya shifted awkwardly. "Sorry," she mumbled. "Rough night." He didn't answer, but she noticed the way his jaw tightened. Something in his eyes wasn't cold, just used to hiding things. Minutes passed. Then, out of nowhere, he asked, "Where were you headed?" She blinked. "Just home. Small apartment in East Hill. It's nothing fancy." He didn't respond. Instead, he turned the wheel gently and began to drive. She looked at him, confused. "Wait, what are you doing?" "You said you were going home," he said. "I'll take you." "You don't even know me." He gave her a look in the mirror. Neither do most people in this city. Doesn't stop them from asking for things. Maya sat back, unsure what to say. The warmth of the car was making her sleepy, but her mind was spinning. Who was this man? She glanced around. No rideshare tablet, no identification. Just luxury polished wood paneling, leather seats, silence too elegant for someone like her. "I really don't want to be a bother," she said softly. "You're not," he said, then after a pause. "Do you always apologize for everything?" She smiled faintly, despite herself. "Yeah, kinda comes with being invisible." He looked at her again. Something in her words stuck with him. For a man who had everything, he had never met someone who felt like nothing. The car slowed near her street, but instead of stopping, he kept driving, taking a right, then a left, circling back toward the main road. Maya sat up. "That was my turn." "I know," he said. "I'm not done talking to you yet." Her breath caught. He wasn't flirting. He wasn't smiling. He was curious. And for some reason, that was more dangerous than any bad date or wrong Uber she'd ever experienced. Maya clutched her bag to her chest, silently trying to piece together what exactly was happening. The man behind the wheel hadn't said a word since deciding to take her home. And yet, he wasn't rushing. He drove like someone who wasn't in a hurry to be anywhere. The car glided through the rainy streets, smooth and quiet, as if insulated from the chaos outside. Every now and then, Maya would glance at him through the rearview mirror. His posture was perfect, one hand on the wheel, the other resting on the gear shift. His face looked like it belonged in magazines, not just handsome, but sculpted, unreadable, as though carved from some colder material than flesh. "Do you usually pick up strangers off the street?" she asked, attempting a light tone to break the tension. He didn't smile. He didn't even glance at her. For a moment, she thought he hadn't heard. But then he answered, "Number." One word, no elaboration. She shifted in her seat, uncomfortable but oddly fascinated. "So, why tonight?" The car turned another corner, the headlights slicing through the mist. "You looked like you needed a break," he said. Her mouth opened slightly, surprised by the answer. It was so simple. And yet no one had ever offered her a break. Not her boss. Not the landlord who kept threatening eviction. Not even her ex-boyfriend, who had once claimed to love her but couldn't stand her working double shifts. She looked down at her hands, which were trembling slightly from the cold. "I work at a diner. Double shifts. My phone died. I wasn't trying to be stupid. I really thought you were my ride." He didn't respond. "I should get out," she added, voice quieter now. "You probably have somewhere to be." Still nothing. Just the sound of tires slicing through water. Then he said, "If you wanted to get out, you would have." Her heart skipped. The words weren't a threat. They were an observation. And the worst part, Wash was right. Something about being in that car felt safer than the dark, wet streets outside. Safer than her apartment complex, where neighbors argued through thin walls and the elevator hadn't worked in months. "Do you have a name?" she asked cautiously. "Ethan." She blinked. That name, it rang a bell. She'd seen it recently. Somewhere important. "Ethan? Hale?" A pause. Then, "Yes." Her throat tightened. Hale. As in Hale Enterprises. The billionaire whose tech firm was in every newspaper. The man whose face was splashed across Forbes covers. The man who, up until now, had been more myth than human. And she had just barged into his car like it was her Uber. "I'm so sorry," she stammered, panic rising in her voice. "I had no idea. I would have never—" "Relax," he said. "But I just—" "Relax," he repeated, firmer this time. She inhaled sharply and leaned back into the leather seat, trying to process the sheer absurdity of what was happening. A billionaire was driving her home. Not in a limo, not with a chauffeur. Himself. "I'm Maya," she offered, voice small. He didn't say anything, just nodded once. They passed a gas station glowing in the dark. Then a row of shuttered stores. The world felt eerily still inside the car. She risked another glance at him. "So, why don't you have a driver?" "I do," he said. "I told him to take the night off." Maya frowned. "Just like that?" "I needed space." That was the second thing he said tonight that felt unusually honest. And just like before, it caught her off guard. "Are you always this quiet?" she asked, smiling faintly. "No," he replied. "Just around people who ask too many questions." She chuckled. "Fair enough." A pause. Then she added, "Thank you for not kicking me out." He didn't look at her, but something in his jaw softened. "You look like someone who's been kicked out enough." Maya swallowed hard. That hit closer than she expected. She wanted to ask how he could possibly know that, but instead, she just stared out the window, blinking quickly. The truth was, she had. And maybe, just maybe, he had too. The rain had slowed, but the night still felt heavy. Ethan drove in silence for another few blocks, until the soft hum of the engine was the only sound between them. Maya was quiet too, her thoughts racing faster than the car. She had just spent the last 15 minutes in a vehicle with one of the most powerful men in the city, possibly the country, and instead of throwing her out, he was still driving, still listening, still there. Eventually, they pulled up in front of a small grocery store. The neon sign flickered overhead, casting tired pink and blue light across the parking lot. Ethan shifted into park. "Are you hungry?" Maya turned toward him, confused. "What?" "You haven't eaten," he said simply, as if it were a fact. She blinked. "How do you know that?" He finally looked at her, his eyes unreadable. "Because I used to look the same way when I hadn't." Maya felt her chest tighten. She didn't know what surprised her more, the way he noticed things about her, or the quiet implication that he hadn't always been who he was now. Before she could respond, he was out of the car, walking toward the store, without waiting for an answer. She hesitated for a moment, then followed. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Ethan moved through the aisles with quiet confidence, selecting items with precision: bread, soup, tea, fruit, some chocolate, even a pack of bandages, when he noticed the small burn on her hand. Maya trailed behind him, half in awe, half in disbelief. "Are you always this prepared?" she asked softly. "I like being in control," he replied, not looking at her. She watched him for a moment. There was something rigid in the way he carried himself, as if kindness was foreign territory and he wasn't sure how deep he was willing to step into it. At the register, he didn't let her pay. When she tried to protest, he said, "Let me do this. It's not charity, it's just dinner." On the way back to the car, she hugged the grocery bag to her chest, the heat of embarrassment creeping into her cheeks. "Most people would have laughed at me," she muttered, "or ignored me completely." "I'm not most people," he said. They drove again. This time, Maya gave him the correct directions. When they reached her building, an old brick complex with flickering lights and rust on the door frames, waited for the judgment that usually came. But Ethan didn't say a word. He looked at the building, then back at her. "Do you feel safe here?" he asked. She hesitated. "It's fine." "That's not what I asked." Maya looked down at her lap, clutching the grocery bag tighter. "It's all I can afford." A long pause. Then Ethan reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a business card. He handed it to her. "Hale Enterprises. My assistant's number is on the back. Her name is Claire." Maya stared at it like it was written in another language. "What? Why are you giving me this?" "Because something tells me you're not just tired, you're stuck." She swallowed hard, not trusting herself to speak. "If you ever want a way out," he continued, "Claire can help you schedule something. A job interview, a training program, or nothing at all. You choose." She looked at the card, then at him. "Why me?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Because once someone gave me a ride when I didn't have one, and it changed everything." Maya felt a lump in her throat. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Say you'll think about it," he replied. She nodded slowly. As she stepped out of the car, the cold air hit her instantly. She turned back one last time. "Ethan?" He met her eyes. "Thank you." He gave a slight nod. And then, without another word, he drove off into the night. Maya stood there for a moment, holding groceries she didn't pay for, and a business card that felt like a ticket to another life. The rain had stopped. But inside her, something else had just begun. Maya sat on the edge of her narrow bed, the card still resting in her hands like it weighed more than the groceries she had just unpacked. Her tiny apartment was dim, lit only by a single-floor lamp with a flickering bulb. The walls were thin, and she could hear her neighbors arguing down the hall again. Someone slammed a door. A baby cried. The usual background noise of a place people came to survive, not live. She stared at the name embossed in gold, Ethan Hale. Beneath it, a phone number and a single word, Claire, written in clean, elegant script. It had been 3 days. 3 long days of going to work, pretending she hadn't met him, pretending her life hadn't cracked open like a dam ready to flood. She had placed the card on her nightstand the first night, then moved it to her wallet, then back to her desk. She kept telling herself she wouldn't call. She wasn't the type to chase fairy tales. But something about his voice had stuck with her. Something about the way he had said, "You looked like someone who's been kicked out enough." That wasn't something people said when they were just being kind. That was something people said when they knew. On the morning of the fourth day, Maya clocked out early from the diner. Her manager didn't care enough to ask why. She walked home slowly, thinking through every possible outcome. Maybe it was all a test. Maybe he'd forgotten her already. Maybe this was a trick rich people played to feel good about themselves. But still, she called. The phone rang twice. "Claire speaking," said a crisp, warm voice on the other end. Hi, my name is Maya. I think Mr. Hale gave me your number." "Yes," Claire said without hesitation. "He mentioned you might call." Maya froze. He remembered. I'm not really sure what this is," she admitted. "He said something about help, a job. I don't really have a resume or anything, and I didn't go to college. I just—" "Miss Maya," Claire interrupted gently, "Mr. Hale asked me to clear an hour in his schedule this Friday. Would 10 a.m. work for you?" Maya's stomach flipped. "To meet with him?" "Yes, at Hale Tower. We'll have security expecting you. Bring only yourself." Maya opened her mouth, then closed it again. Friday, Hale Tower, the place she had walked past 1,000 times without ever daring to look up. And now she was being invited in. "Okay," she said softly. "I'll be there." "Very good. Have a nice day, Miss Maya." Click. The line went dead. Maya stood in her apartment for a long time, phone still pressed to her ear, until her neighbor's dog barked and brought her back to reality. She spent the next 3 days agonizing over what to wear. She didn't own anything remotely professional. Every option either had a stain, a tear, or both. Eventually, she borrowed a blouse from her co-worker Carla, who was 2 sizes smaller but kind enough to help. She tied her hair back, put on the only pair of flats she owned, and arrived at Hale Tower 15 minutes early. The building soared above her, all glass and steel, a monument to power. She had never been inside anything like it. The receptionist greeted her by name, handed her a visitor badge, and gestured toward the private elevator. As the doors closed, Maya caught a glimpse of herself in the mirrored wall. She looked like a child sneaking into a world she didn't belong in. When the elevator opened, Claire was waiting. She was tall, poised, and dressed in a navy suit that fit like it had been sewn onto her. "Miss Maya," she said with a smile, "right this way." They walked down a quiet hallway, past sleek glass walls and minimalistic art. Everything smelled like expensive leather and fresh flowers. Maya's palms were sweating. Claire stopped in front of a large wooden door. "He's ready for you." Maya hesitated. Her heart was pounding. And then she stepped inside. Ethan was seated at a massive desk near the window, sunlight spilling across his sleeves. He looked up the moment she entered. "You came," he said. "I said I would." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit." She did, stiffly, unsure of what to expect. "I asked you here," he began, "because I want to offer you something." Maya held her breath. "A job?" He shook his head. "A chance." She blinked. "What kind of chance?" Ethan leaned forward. "One that will change everything." Maya sat frozen in the high-backed chair across from Ethan's desk, hands folded tightly in her lap. The office was immaculate warm wood tones, floor-to-ceiling windows, and not a single item out of place. But none of that felt as intimidating as the man sitting in front of her, offering her something she couldn't quite grasp. "A chance to do what?" she asked cautiously, her voice low. Ethan's gaze didn't waver. "To learn, to grow, to prove to yourself that you're more than where you come from. She shook her head slightly. I don't understand. I'm not qualified for anything you do here. He leaned back, studying her. You said you work at a diner. You deal with rude customers, long hours, low pay. You keep going. That tells me you're disciplined. You survive on scraps, yet somehow you remain kind. That tells me you have character. You walked into my car without fear, and once you realized your mistake, you didn't beg or flatter me. You simply apologized. That tells me you have dignity. Maya felt her face flush. No one had ever spoken about her like that. Certainly not someone like him. But I don't have a degree, she whispered. No real experience. I wouldn't even know where to begin. Ethan stood and walked to the window, hands clasped behind his back. I didn't graduate college either. She looked up, startled. I built Hale Enterprises from a coffee-stained laptop in a basement I shared with 3 roommates, he continued. I know what it feels like to be overlooked. Maya sat up straighter, caught between disbelief and awe. You don't need a polished resume, Ethan added. You need opportunity. She hesitated. And what's in it for you? He turned slowly to face her. Someone gave me a shot when I didn't deserve one. This is me paying that forward. Silence stretched between them. Maya's mind raced through 100 doubts and insecurities. What if she failed? What if she embarrassed herself? What if this was some elaborate test she didn't even realize she was taking? But beneath all that was something else. Hope. What exactly would I be doing? She asked finally. A 6-month mentorship program, Ethan replied. Paid. You'd rotate through different departments' communications, logistics, internal relations. At the end, we evaluate. If there's a fit, we offer you a permanent role. Her mouth went dry. That sounds impossible. It's not, he said. Just unfamiliar. Maya's hands trembled slightly. She looked down, then back up. Why me? Out of everyone you could have chosen? His jaw clenched. Because when you looked at me in that car, you didn't see a CEO. You saw a stranger, and you were kind anyway. She swallowed hard. I'm not promising you success, Ethan continued, but I'm offering a door. Whether you walk through it, that's up to you. Maya took a deep breath. When would I start? He smiled barely, but it was there. Monday. She nodded slowly, feeling like the floor beneath her had just shifted. Claire returned to escort her out, handing her a sleek envelope with onboarding documents. Maya gripped it like it might vanish if she blinked. As they stepped into the elevator, Claire glanced at her. He doesn't do this. Ever. Maya looked up. Then why now? Claire smiled softly. Maybe he saw something in you the rest of the world missed. The elevator doors closed, and Maya's reflection stared back at her in the mirrored panel. A girl from East Hill. A waitress with no plan. And now, someone with a chance. She didn't know what would happen next. But for the first time in years, she was ready to find out. Monday came faster than Maya expected. She barely slept the night before, torn between excitement and terror. Her borrowed blouse was ironed to perfection, her hair tied back neatly, and her only pair of decent flats had been cleaned until they shined. She arrived at Hale Tower 15 minutes early again, clutching the onboarding envelope like a lifeline. Claire greeted her at the front desk with that same calm elegance. Good morning, Maya. Follow me. They didn't take the main elevator this time. Instead, Claire guided her to a side entrance with a keycard access lift. Maya stood stiffly as they ascended. She expected to be taken to some cramped intern cubicle, but instead, they arrived on a quiet floor filled with soft lighting, muted colors, and tall glass panels etched with inspirational quotes. This is the mentorship wing, Claire explained. It's a pilot program. You're the first participant. Maya blinked. Wait, the first? Claire nodded, leading her into a cozy office space with a modern desk, fresh stationery, and a welcome note that simply read, "Let the work begin." Her throat tightened. She hadn't been welcomed into a room like this before. Not like this. "Your first rotation is in communications," Claire continued. "You'll shadow Alicia Tranches, our director of internal content. She knows you're new, and she volunteered to mentor." Maya sat slowly at the desk, fingers grazing the polished surface. "I still don't get it," she murmured. "Why build this? For someone like me?" Claire looked at her for a long moment. "Because someone up there believes you belong here. And maybe you do." Her first day was overwhelming. Alicia was sharp and efficient, but surprisingly warm. She walked Maya through everything from email templates to press briefings and made sure she never felt lost. Maya scribbled notes furiously, trying to memorize every acronym, every system, every name. She didn't want to be the poor girl with no experience. She wanted to be worthy. During lunch, Alicia asked, "You from around here?" "East Hill," Maya replied. "Kind of the forgotten part." Alicia raised an eyebrow. "I grew up near there." Maya smiled, relieved. "No way." "Way," Alicia said. "Most people here are just pretending to be polished. Don't forget that." That afternoon, Maya delivered a draft email for an upcoming employee announcement. Alicia read it, paused, and said, "You're better at this than I thought you'd be." Maya flushed. "Thanks. I just write like I speak." "Then keep speaking like that," Alicia said. "People like honest words." By the end of the week, Maya had memorized everyone's coffee orders, including Alicia's almond milk cappuccino with cinnamon. She started anticipating tasks before they were assigned. On Friday, Alicia handed her a sealed folder and said, "Drop this at Ethan's office. He's expecting it." Maya's pulse quickened. She hadn't seen him since the meeting. The executive floor was quieter than she remembered. As she approached the massive wooden door, her hand hesitated over the handle. Then she knocked once. "Come in," his voice called. She stepped inside. Ethan was seated, as always, a laptop open in front of him. He looked up and immediately recognized her. "Maya," he said, "how was your first week?" She placed the folder on his desk. "Overwhelming, but good. I didn't cry, if that's what you're asking." He smiled faintly. "That's more than most." They stood in silence for a beat. "Thank you," she said suddenly. "Not just for the job, for believing I could do it." "I didn't give you this because I believed," he replied. "I gave it to you because you had nothing to lose. And sometimes, that makes you more dangerous than anyone in this building." She wasn't sure whether to feel honored or terrified. Then he said something that stuck. "Next week, you rotate to logistics. It's less glamorous, more grunt work, but that's where you'll learn how we actually move." She nodded. "I'm ready." He looked at her, and for a second, there was something in his expression that wasn't there before. Pride. As she turned to leave, he added, "Maya?" She looked back. "Don't let them underestimate you." She smiled. "Don't worry," she said. "I've had plenty of practice proving people wrong." Maya's second week began before the sun rose. The logistics department was housed on the lower floors of Hale Tower, far from the glass-walled executive suites and designer offices. Here, things moved fast. People wore jeans and headsets, not tailored suits. They tracked shipments, scheduled deliveries, managed suppliers, and solved problems before anyone at the top even knew they existed. Maya's first day began with a blunt introduction from her new supervisor, Felix Ramos. "I don't care where you came from," he said flatly, arms crossed. "We don't babysit. If you're here, you work. Understood?" She nodded, standing straighter. "Understood." Felix squinted at her. What's a comms girl doing in my department anyway? It's part of the mentorship program, she replied. I'm rotating. He grunted. Well, don't expect anyone to roll out a red carpet. Maya smiled faintly. I never have. The next few days were brutal. She was expected to learn supply chains, vendor codes, tracking systems, and problem-solving protocols, most of which came without instruction. Felix threw her into live orders with barely any prep, testing her under pressure. On the third day, Maya accidentally sent a rerouting confirmation to the wrong delivery team, causing a delay in a high-priority shipment. The fallout was immediate. Felix called her out in front of the team. You just cost us 5 hours and a client call. That kind of mistake gets people fired. She wanted to melt into the floor. Her chest tightened, and for a moment, she thought about quitting, about walking straight to the elevator and disappearing. But then she remembered Ethan's words, "Don't let them underestimate you." That night, she stayed after hours to study the logistics database. She watched old training videos. She created flashcards for vendor codes and memorized team extension numbers. When the cleaning crew arrived to vacuum the halls, she was still typing. By the end of the week, Maya knew the system better than some full-time staff. On Friday morning, a regional warehouse went offline due to a weather-related outage. Chaos erupted across the floor. Felix barked orders, and someone shouted about losing track of a critical inventory report. Maya, seated quietly at her desk, ran 3 manual checks, cross-referenced shipment IDs, and located the missing data within 15 minutes. She stood up, walked over to Felix's desk, and handed him the report. Here, she said, sorted and verified. Felix looked down, eyebrows raised. Then he looked up at her like he was seeing her for the first time. He didn't say thank you, but later that day, he called her into his office. You made a mess on Monday, he began. She nodded. I know, but you cleaned it up on Friday. She tilted her head. So I break even? He cracked a rare smile. You've got grit. We don't see that much. Is that a compliment? She teased. Don't push your luck. When Maya returned to her desk, she found a small sticky note left on her keyboard. It was in Claire's handwriting. You're making waves. Keep swimming. She smiled. That night, Ethan emailed her personally. Subject: Logistics. Message: Heard you saved a shipment. Good instincts. Use them. E.H. She read the message 5 times. Not because of what it said, but because of what it meant. Someone was watching. And more importantly, someone cared. As she walked home that evening, Maya noticed something strange. People passed her on the street the same way they always had, but she didn't feel invisible anymore. She felt seen, and she wasn't about to let that go. By the time Maya reached the halfway point of her mentorship, something had shifted not just within her, but within the halls of Hale Tower. People had started saying her name. In elevators, in break rooms, quietly, but noticeably. That girl from East Hill, the one who messed up logistics and then fixed it. The one Ethan Hale invited personally. Maya wasn't supposed to hear these things, but she did. And with every whisper came something new: scrutiny. On Monday morning, she began her 3rd rotation in human resources. The department's director, Janine Calloway, was sharp as glass and twice as cold. She greeted Maya with a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. So you're the mentorship experiment, she said, motioning for Maya to sit. Let's see if you're as sharp as he thinks. There it was again, he. As if Ethan's name had become a shield and a target all at once. Maya kept her posture straight, her tone neutral. I'm here to learn, Miss Calloway, whatever you need. Her days were filled with paperwork, onboarding documents, internal conflict resolutions, and company policy compliance. Janine didn't make things easy. She corrected Maya publicly, assigned her tedious tasks, and never once offered encouragement. By Wednesday, Maya overheard two HR associates talking behind the frosted glass of the copy room. "She's just a pet project," one said. "Probably some guilt trip. Rich men love a good redemption fantasy," the other replied. Maya stood outside, frozen. She had expected doubt, but not cruelty. That night, she went home and stared at herself in the mirror for a long time. The blouse she wore had a small tear under the collar. Her eyes were heavy, but not defeated. She picked up her notebook and wrote down one sentence: "I am not here by accident." On Thursday, during an internal team meeting, Janine asked the group to brainstorm ways to improve employee retention. Maya listened carefully as the others spoke in corporate cliches and vague solutions. Then, hesitantly, she raised her hand. "I think most of the exit interviews say the same thing," she began. "People feel unheard. I'd suggest a monthly anonymous voice, note system employees record concerns or suggestions, and HR responds to at least 5 per week publicly. Creates accountability, builds trust." The room went quiet. Janine stared at her for a long moment, then said, "That's actually not bad." The next day, Janine mentioned the idea during an executive meeting. She didn't credit Maya. Claire texted her 5 minutes later. "Don't worry, Ethan knows where it came from." Maya smiled despite herself. That afternoon, as she walked through the hallway near the executive wing, she crossed paths with someone she didn't recognize. A woman in a designer suit, high heels clicking on the marble floor, followed by 2 assistants. The woman stopped, looked Maya up and down, and said, "You're the girl from the car." Maya's heart skipped. "I'm sorry?" "You're the one Ethan picked," the woman said. "Interesting." Then she turned and walked away, leaving only perfume and a chill in the air. Maya didn't know who she was, but something about the way she said "picked" didn't sound flattering. Later that evening, she brought the encounter up to Claire. Claire sighed. "That was Marissa Cole. She sits on the board, and she doesn't like surprises. Should I be worried?" "No," Claire said, "but be ready. People like her don't play fair, especially when they feel threatened." Maya left the building that night with her head spinning. She thought the hardest part would be proving herself. But now she was learning something else. When you start rising, someone is always waiting to pull you back down. 2 weeks into her human resources rotation, Maya was walking a razor's edge. Every move was watched, every word analyzed. And though no one said it out loud, she could feel the pressure mounting like a storm cloud above her head. Her suggestion for the voice note system had gained quiet traction, yet no one gave her credit publicly. Instead, she was asked to sit in and observe more meetings, as if proximity alone was enough to placate her. But Maya wasn't here for proximity. She was here to grow. One afternoon, while organizing conflict resolution files, she noticed something odd. 2 employees had filed near-identical complaints about their manager over a 2-month span, both alleging verbal abuse and overwork. Yet the HR resolution notes were marked, "Handled. No action needed." She flagged it discreetly and brought it to Janine. Janine took one look at the document and set it aside. "Old news." "But," Maya started, "I said it's handled." Her voice was ice. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. It wasn't just the unfairness. It was the realization that some people in power didn't want to fix things. They wanted silence. The next morning, Claire found her in the mentorship wing early, long before anyone else arrived. Maya was sitting at her desk with a cup of cheap coffee and the file folder in her lap. Claire sat across from her without a word. "I don't want to cause trouble," Maya said finally, "but I can't pretend I didn't see it." Claire nodded. "Then don't pretend, but be smart." "I thought this place was different." Claire smiled faintly. "Every tower has cracks, even this one." Later that day, Ethan summoned Maya to his office. He didn't greet her with small talk. He simply said, "You found something, didn't you?" Her chest tightened. "Claire told you?" "No," he said. "But I've been waiting for you to find something no one else would touch." Maya placed the file gently on his desk. These complaints were buried. Ethan opened it, skimmed, closed it again. "I'll look into it," he said. "You did the right thing. Janine won't see it that way." "I'll handle Janine." Maya hesitated. "Why me? Why trust me with something this big?" Ethan met her eyes. "Because you still remember what it's like to be at the bottom. Most people here have forgotten." Later that week, a quiet shift occurred in HR. Janine was reassigned to a corporate advisory role. Her departure wasn't discussed openly, but her absence was felt. Maya's colleagues avoided eye contact for a few days, unsure whether to treat her like a hero or a threat. That Friday, Maya stayed late to finish logging new reports. The building was mostly empty. The lights above her desk flickered softly. She was halfway through her checklist when she noticed someone lingering near her workspace. It was Marissa Cole. She stood with her arms crossed, a calm smile on her lips that didn't match the sharpness in her eyes. "You've made quite the impression," Marissa said. Maya sat still. "I'm just doing the work." Marissa stepped closer. "You do realize that not everyone climbs this fast without paying a price?" I haven't climbed anything," Maya replied. "I'm still learning." Marissa leaned in. "Let me give you a piece of advice. From someone who's been near power long enough to smell fearmen like Ethan Hale, don't offer chances without expectations." Maya held her ground. "And women like you don't offer warnings without agendas." For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Marissa smiled again, turned, and walked away. Maya's hands trembled slightly as she returned to her work. But she didn't stop. She didn't run. Because deep down, she knew something they didn't. She wasn't afraid of starting at the bottom. She was afraid of wasting the chance she'd been given. By the end of her third rotation, Maya had become a name that circulated quietly but persistently inside Hale Tower. Not loud, not flashy, but unavoidable. So when Claire knocked on her desk one afternoon with a slim black envelope in hand, Maya didn't know whether to feel honored or ambushed. "You're invited," Claire said simply, placing the envelope down. "To what?" Claire smiled. "The Hale Foundation Annual Gala. Black tie. Saturday night. Attendance is optional, but highly recommended." Maya opened the envelope and stared at the elegant gold lettering. It didn't feel real. "I don't have anything to wear," she murmured, almost to herself. Claire didn't miss a beat. "There's a stylist waiting for you at Valera's downtown. Mr. Hale already covered it." Maya blinked. "Waith did what?" Claire smirked. "He said, and I quote, 'If she's going to walk into that room, she's going to walk in as if she owns it.'" Saturday came faster than expected. Valera's boutique was a dream floor-length mirrors, silk gowns, quiet music. The stylist, a tall woman named Renee with a voice like velvet, dressed Maya in a deep navy gown that hugged her shape with elegance and grace. Her hair was pinned in soft waves, minimal makeup, just enough to make her eyes stand out. Maya barely recognized herself in the mirror. When she arrived at the gala, held in the rooftop ballroom of a private luxury hotel, the city skyline glittered like a sea of diamonds. The room was filled with CEOs, politicians, donors, and media figures. Every woman sparkled. Every man exuded power. She felt like she'd stepped into a painting she had no business being in. Then Ethan found her. He was dressed in a sleek black tuxedo, crisp and sharp, his hair combed back without effort. When he approached, the crowd seemed to part around him. "You clean up well," he said, his voice low. "So do you," she replied, her nerves bubbling under her smile. He extended an arm. "May I?" She took it, her fingers trembling slightly. As they walked through the room, Maya felt eyes on her, curious, judging, some admiring, others not. Marissa Cole was there, of course, dressed in emerald silk, holding a glass of wine like it was an extension of her arm. She raised her eyebrows when she saw Maya, then turned and whispered something to a board member. Ethan leaned down and whispered, "Ignore her. She thrives on being noticed." Maya nodded, though her spine remained stiff. They reached the main table, where donors and executives were seated. Maya was surprised to find a name card waiting for her. Maya Elkins, special guest. Not assistant. Not intern. Not mentee. Guest. She sat between Ethan and Claire, trying to stay calm as waiters served courses with names she couldn't pronounce. Halfway through dinner, Ethan leaned over. "You nervous?" She looked at him, terrified. He smiled. "Good. Means you're paying attention." After the meal, Ethan was called to the stage to give a speech. He stood before the crowd with ease, charisma radiating from him like heat. Cameras flashed. Phones recorded. "I founded Hale Enterprises with nothing but a loan and a lot of stubbornness," he began. "But tonight isn't about success. It's about remembering who we were before we were somebody." Maya's heart pounded. "And sometimes," he continued, "we meet people who remind us of what grit really looks like, of what determination, humility, and resilience can do when given a crack in the wall. Someone like that walked into my life by accident, but I've never believed in accidents." He didn't say her name, but everyone turned to look at her anyway. After the speech, dozens of guests came by to meet her, some with polite curiosity, others with genuine warmth. A few made comments like, "You must be quite something to get Mr. Hale's attention." Maya smiled through all of it, even as the weight of their assumptions pressed against her ribs. As the night wound down, she stepped out onto the balcony for air. The city stretched endlessly below her. For the first time, she stood high enough to see how far she'd come. Ethan joined her a few minutes later, 2 champagne glasses in hand. "To new beginnings," he said, handing her one. "To not falling off the edge," she replied with a smile. They clinked glasses. He looked at her for a long moment, then said, "You belong here, Maya." She wanted to believe him. She really did. But in that moment, staring at the world below, she realized something. Belonging wasn't given, it was claimed. And she was finally ready to take it. The Monday after the gala, everything felt different. Maya walked into Hale Tower not as an outsider, but as someone who had stood in a room full of the elite and held her own. Employees she barely knew greeted her with nods. Some smiled. A few whispered as she passed, their voices tinged with curiosity or quiet envy. But Maya didn't let it go to her head. She returned to work with quiet focus, ready to begin her final rotation, public affairs. This department wasn't about logistics or HR protocols. It was about managing the company's image, crisis communication, reputation management, influence, and secrets. Her mentor for this rotation was Damon Laird, a polished executive with silvering temples and a voice like a seasoned broadcaster. He welcomed her with a firm handshake and a single instruction: watch everything. Speak when you know something. Learn before you act. Maya followed him into meetings filled with attorneys and brand consultants. She listened as they dissected news cycles, controlled narratives, and predicted social backlash before it ever materialized. But just as she was settling into the rhythm of this new world, the past knocked on her door. Literally. On Wednesday afternoon, as she was returning from the break room, a familiar voice stopped her cold. "Maya?" She turned. Standing in the Hale Tower lobby, looking entirely out of place in wrinkled jeans and a hoodie, was Alex, her ex-boyfriend. The one who left when things got hard. The one who told her she'd never amount to anything beyond the diner. He blinked, confused. What are you doing here? Her mouth went dry. I work here. He laughed an awkward, disbelieving sound. What? Since when? Maya straightened her shoulders. I'm part of a mentorship program. He looked around, scoffing. Figures. Some rich guy taking pity on you? Before she could respond, Claire appeared beside her like a silent guardian. Is there a problem, Miss Elkins? Maya opened her mouth, but Alex cut in. Who's this? Your babysitter. Claire ignored him. Security has been notified. You have 30 seconds to leave. Alex's smile faltered. I'm just trying to talk to her. Maya stepped forward, her voice steady. No, you're trying to remind me of who I used to be, but I don't live there anymore. He hesitated, then scoffed again. Whatever. Don't come crawling back when this place chews you up. He turned and walked out. Claire didn't speak. She just gently guided Maya toward the elevator. Once inside, the silence felt deafening. Thank you, Maya whispered. Claire finally looked at her. You don't owe anyone your past, especially those who abandoned you in it. That night, Maya stayed at her desk long after most of the office had emptied. She wasn't working. She was thinking about who she was, who she'd become, and who she was still afraid to be. Around 9 p.m., her phone buzzed. A message from Ethan. You okay? Claire told me. She stared at the screen for a long moment, then replied, Yeah, just shaking off ghosts. Another message came through. Ghosts don't survive in towers. People like you do. She smiled. For the first time, she didn't feel like an imposter. She felt like someone who had earned her place in the storm. The following week began with calm. Too calm. Maya had learned enough in public affairs to know that quiet rarely meant peace. It often meant something was brewing beneath the surface. Damon had her reviewing press statements and preparing briefing notes for an upcoming board meeting, where Ethan would present a new philanthropic initiative focused on education access. But on Thursday morning, the storm finally broke. Maya was seated at her desk reviewing drafts when Claire appeared beside her, unusually pale. You need to come with me, she said, voice low. Maya stood immediately. What happened? Something's been leaked. Claire led her through back corridors to a small crisis meeting room. Inside were Ethan, Damon, 2 legal advisors, and a PR consultant. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Ethan gestured for her to sit. You've seen this before, so I'm trusting you to stay calm. He slid a printed copy of an online article across the table. Inside, the Hale mentorship. Billionaire CEO sparks scandal over secret relationship with former waitress. Maya's stomach dropped. The article included photos from the gala of Ethan escorting her, another of them speaking on the balcony. Quotes from anonymous insiders claimed she had been given special treatment, suggesting the mentorship program was a cover for personal involvement. Who would write this? Maya whispered, voice tight. Someone with access to internal details, Damon said. And an agenda. Claire spoke next. We believe the source is from inside the company, possibly board level. Maya's hands trembled slightly. What do we do? Ethan remained calm. Too calm. We stay quiet, he said. The moment we react, we validate it. Public Affairs will release a neutral statement reaffirming the program's goals. No mention of names, no emotional rebuttals. Maya felt her chest tighten. But people will think it's true. Ethan met her eyes. Only if we let them. The meeting adjourned with orders for everyone to stay silent and professional. But by midday, the article had gone viral in the business world. Her inbox exploded with emails she wasn't supposed to see, internal threads, gossip-laced questions, and messages from former co-workers asking if she was really with Ethan Hale. She stayed at her desk, working as best she could, until Claire pulled her aside. "You can go home, Maya. Let this breathe." But she shook her head. "I'm not hiding." That evening, Ethan called her into his office. He looked more tired than she'd ever seen, hem collar undone, sleeves rolled, eyes dark with focus. "I'm sorry this happened," he said. "It's the price of visibility." She swallowed hard. "They think I'm here because of you, not because I earned it." "You don't need to defend yourself to people who never saw you to begin with," he replied. "You've done the work. I see it. Claire sees it. Everyone who matters sees it." Maya looked at him. "Do you want me to quit?" His jaw tensed. "Number. That would make it real." Silence. Then he added softer, "Do you want to quit?" She thought about the nights she stayed late, the hours she spent studying vendor codes and drafting reports, the pressure, the humiliation, the hunger. And she remembered Alex's voice. "Don't come crawling back." "No," she said. "I want to finish what I started." Ethan gave a single nod. "Then that's what we'll do." The next day, she arrived early and worked harder than ever. Not to prove the headlines wrong, but to prove to herself that they didn't matter. The following week, Hale Tower felt split in two. On the surface, operations continued as usual. Phones rang, emails were sent, meetings held, but beneath it all, tension buzzed like a hidden wire. Some employees looked at Maya with sympathy. Others avoided eye contact entirely. A few whispered when they thought she couldn't hear about the article, the rumors, and whether her sudden rise was a matter of merit or something else. Maya kept her head down and her work sharp. She answered every call on the first ring, delivered every report early, stayed out of the executive floor unless summoned. Still, the air felt heavier with every passing day. On Thursday morning, Claire approached her desk with a strange look on her face. "Mr. Hale wants to see you," she said. "Now." Maya followed her without a word, heart pounding. Ethan's office was quiet. The blinds were half drawn, casting soft shadows across the floor. He stood near the window, hands in his pockets, the city stretching behind him like a painting. "Come in," he said. She stepped inside and closed the door. He didn't turn. "There's going to be a vote," he said after a long pause. "At the next board meeting." Maya frowned. "About what?" "About removing me as CEO." The words hit her like a blow. "What? Why?" "The mentorship program. The article. Marissa's using it to claim impropriety. That I've compromised the company's image and investor trust." "That's ridiculous," she said, voice rising. "You've done nothing wrong." Ethan finally turned to face her. "It doesn't have to be true, Maya. It just has to be believable." She shook her head. "They're trying to erase everything you've built over a lie." He walked back to his desk, picked up a document, and handed it to her. It was a drafted resignation letter. She stared at it, stunned. "You're stepping down?" "I'm considering it," he said. "If it calms the board and keeps the company stable, it might be the best move." "No," she said immediately. "You can't let them win." "I'm not sure it's about winning anymore." Silence stretched between them. Then, he said something she didn't expect. "There's another option." She looked at him. "What?" "You resign from the mentorship, publicly. Make a statement. Say that it was misunderstood, that you need space, that we both do." She felt her stomach turn. "So I take the fall?" "No," he said. "You take control of the narrative. They want to paint you as weak. Let them see you choose to walk away on your terms." Maya stared at him. "Is that what you want?" "No," he said softly. "But it might be what's needed." She left the office without another word, resignation letter still in hand. All day, she avoided Claire, avoided her desk, avoided the stairs. She sat in a quiet corner of the mentorship wing, reading the draft over and over again. It was polite, professional, cold. A single sentence stood out. While I am grateful for the experience, I believe it's in the company's best interest that I step away. She hated every word of it. That night, she took the long way home, past the diner where she used to work, past the corner where she once cried after a double shift, past the apartment that still creaked with the weight of old dreams. By the time she reached her building, she had made her decision. The next morning, she walked into Ethan's office without knocking. He looked up, surprised. "I'm not quitting," she said. "Maya, I'm not apologizing for something I didn't do. I'm not shrinking to make powerful people comfortable. I didn't get here by accident, and I won't leave like a shadow." Ethan studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he smiled. "Then let's fight. Together. For the truth. For her name. And for the future neither of them expected. But both of them were finally ready to claim. Word of the board meeting spread like wildfire through Hale Tower. Everyone knew what was at stake. By Friday morning, the building buzzed with anticipation. Executives moved with urgency. Assistants whispered in hallways. Security was tighter. And Maya, though she'd barely sleptwalked through the glass doors with a calm she hadn't felt since this journey began. She had made her choice. She wouldn't hide. She wouldn't apologize. She would stand. Claire met her outside the boardroom. "Are you sure?" she asked softly. Maya nodded. "Absolutely." The meeting began at 10 a.m. sharp. The boardroom was larger than Maya expected. Long mahogany table, 12 seats all occupied. Marissa Cole sat near the center, poised in charcoal gray, a slight smirk on her lips. Ethan stood at the head of the table, flanked by legal counsel and the company's general advisor. Claire guided Maya to the back of the room, where observers could listen but not speak unless invited. The chairman cleared his throat. Today's agenda is to evaluate the impact of recent media controversy surrounding Hale Enterprises and determine if leadership adjustments are necessary. Marissa spoke first. She detailed the optics concern of Ethan's relationship with a young woman, plucked from obscurity, calling it an erosion of internal trust and a breach of executive ethics. She never said Maya's name. She didn't have to. Maya sat tall, eyes locked forward, fists clenched in her lap. Then Ethan stood. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't beg. "I built this company on 3 values: transparency, opportunity, and courage," he said. "I didn't create a mentorship to spark headlines. I did it because I saw someone who reminded me of everything we claim to support, and I wasn't going to let her slip through the cracks." Several board members shifted in their seats. "And, for the record," Ethan added, "I've never crossed any boundary professionally or personally. What's been said about me, and about Maya Elkins, is a distortion at best, a deliberate attack at worst." Marissa raised an eyebrow. "Then why not remove the distraction?" Ethan turned slowly to Maya. "Maya," he said, voice strong, "would you be willing to speak?" Gasps rippled through the room. Maya stood. Her legs shook slightly, but her voice didn't. "I didn't come to Hale Tower looking for a rescue," she began. "I came because I was given a sliver of hope, and I worked for every inch that followed." She looked directly at Marissa. "I wasn't given a fast track. I was given a chance. And yes, Ethan Hale gave it to me. But he never once asked for anything in return. Not special treatment, not loyalty, not silence." She turned to the board. "If Hale Enterprises is willing to throw away a program that helps people like me just because of rumors, then maybe the problem isn't me. It's what I represent." Silence. Then a slow clap from one of the elder board members. Another joined. Then another. And the tide began to turn. The chairman called for a vote. When it was over, Ethan remained CEO. Marissa didn't speak again. After the meeting, Maya stepped into the hallway, breathing for the first time in what felt like hours. Ethan joined her. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "Yes, I did." He looked at her, quiet for a moment. "I was proud of you before, but now I'm just in awe." She smiled. "So what happens now?" He slipped his hands into his pockets. "Now, we get back to work." She nodded. But deep down, they both knew nothing would ever be the same again. A week had passed since the boardroom showdown. The storm had settled. The gossip faded. Ethan was still CEO. Maya, still the mentee. But everything felt different now. She walked through the halls of Hale Tower with her head held higher, not because people stared less, but because it no longer mattered if they did. The whispers had turned into greetings, the stares into nods. Some colleagues who had once kept their distance now asked her for advice, for help, for insight. She had become more than a headline. She had become a voice. One morning, Claire appeared at her desk again, holding a familiar envelope. Maya raised an eyebrow. "Another gala?" Claire smiled. "Number Ethan wants to see you. He asked that I give you this before the meeting." Inside was a new card. But this time, it didn't say mentee. It said, Maya Elkin, Strategic Operations Liaison. Maya blinked. "Wait, is this real?" Claire nodded. "Congratulations. It's a full-time offer, with benefits, with salary, and with a title that you earned more than anyone else." Maya's heart pounded. She sat back in her chair, stunned. He didn't say anything. "He wanted you to read it before you spoke." She entered Ethan's office minutes later, clutching the card like it might vanish. He stood by the window again, as he always did when things were heavy. "So?" he asked without turning. "Are you going to accept?" She laughed softly. "You didn't even ask me yet." I figured the envelope spoke for itself. She walked closer, holding the card. "You really think I'm ready for this?" Ethan finally turned, eyes steady. "You were ready the minute you stepped into the wrong car." She took a breath. "Then, yes, I accept." He smiled, then reached into his desk and pulled out a thick folder. "Great, because I need your input on this. It's a new outreach initiative modeled on your mentorship program. We're calling it the Bridge Project. You'll help oversee it." She opened the folder. Inside were plans for a company-wide platform to find, train, and uplift people from underserved backgrounds, offering education, guidance, and real opportunities. Maya's eyes filled with tears. "You want me to lead this?" "No one else could," Ethan said. "This company needs more people like you. You see things we don't." She swallowed hard. "I don't know what to say." "Say you're ready." She looked up and nodded. "I'm ready." That night, Maya returned to her old neighborhood not out of nostalgia, but with purpose. She walked past the diner where she used to scrub counters, past the stoop where she cried over bills, past the street where she waited in the rain for a ride that was never supposed to be hers. Only this time, she wasn't invisible. She wasn't lost. She was coming back as proof that it only takes one open door to change everything. She stood outside her apartment building and looked up at the sky, clear now. No rain in sight. She took out her phone and snapped a photo. Then she sent it to Ethan. Caption, "Full circle." A few seconds later, his reply came through. And just the beginning. 6 months later, Hale Tower didn't just look different. It felt different. The mentorship program, now officially named the Bridge Project, had expanded into 5 cities, with over 30 participants. Maya oversaw every detail, building relationships with department heads, guiding applicants, defending each name on the list as if they were her own reflection. She wasn't the girl who walked into the wrong car anymore. She was the woman building a road so others could find their way to. But success hadn't made her soft. She still showed up early, stayed late, took notes like she was still learning because she was. The pressure was heavier now, yes, the eyes sharper, but so was her voice. So was her belief in herself. One afternoon, she was preparing for a keynote she would deliver to a panel of investors. It was the biggest stage she'd ever speak on, and she felt it in her bones. Claire entered her office quietly, holding a small white box. "What's this?" Maya asked. Claire smiled. "A tradition. Ethan sends it before every major milestone." Maya opened the box. Inside was a folded piece of paper, handwritten. It read, "The girl in the rain changed everything." She closed her eyes for a moment, exhaling slowly. Later that day, she stood on stage in front of hundreds of industry leaders, journalists, and policymakers. The lights were blinding, the cameras unforgiving, and still she stood tall. When her name was called, the applause was polite. By the time she finished her speech, the room was on its feet. She didn't tell them the whole story. Not about the wrong car, not about the rumors or the stares or the long nights doubting herself. She simply told them the truth. All it takes is one open door, and someone brave enough to walk through it. After the event, as she walked backstage, she saw Ethan waiting, hands in pockets, subtle smile on his face. "That was impressive," he said. She raised an eyebrow. "You think?" "I know." They stood in silence for a beat, the crowd murmuring in the distance. Then she asked, "So, what's next?" He looked at her and replied, without hesitation, "Whatever you want." That night, Maya returned to her apartment, the same place she had once feared coming home to. Now, it was her sanctuary. On her nightstand was the card Ethan had given her that first week. The edges were worn, the print fading. She picked it up and tucked it into a new frame next to her desk. Not as a reminder of who gave it to her, but of the woman who became strong enough to deserve it. Because fairy tales aren't about magic. They're about grit, about choices, about what happens when you stop waiting to be chosen and choose yourself. And that truly was the beginning of everything.